whoa, hold on. Before you get mad, just hear me out. So Netflix has gotten some heat recently for canceling a show. I don't remember the name of it. Please don't get mad at me. I didn't watch it. I've never heard of it. People are up in flames about it, saying like, why did you cancel this one when it's beloved and it has all these great things, but you're keeping shows like Insatiable, 13 Reasons Why, which I agree with. They should nix that one. But Insatiable seems to be the one that people keep drudging up as the example of what Netflix should not keep. Because of all of these problematic things they find in Insatiable. And it's a little frustrating. I'm gonna go ahead and out myself. You can probably tell I like Insatiable just by the fact that I'm making this video. I tried to honor Patti Bladell with this outfit. She's never worn anything like this, but it's the closest thing I had. This is my video in defense of Insatiable. Before you get pissed and go and make some Twitter thread about all the reasons why Insatiable is bad and why I'm canceled now because I support such a terrible show, maybe just like hear me out as to why maybe it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to you and to media, and why it actually is kind of maybe good if you would just, you know, kind of relax this, just let the shoulders drop, just maybe hold off lighting your pitchfork till the end of the video. Just give it a chance, because when I went into watching Insatiable, all I'd heard was negative things. I'd heard horrible things about how it was fat-shaming, homophobic, transphobic, biphobic, ableist, racist, lack of representation, and I was like, okay, well, I want to see for myself because I like the actress Debbie Ryan, and I should honestly make a whole video in defense of her because a lot of people hate her for, honestly, I don't know why. I've looked into her and her dirty past, and coming up short. Don't come and tag her in the comments. I don't care what you have to say about Debbie Ryan. I'm just saying that the reason I wanted to watch Insatiable was I knew that she was starring in it. Maybe it's not as bad as people are saying, maybe it's being misunderstood because the people who created the show had some compelling arguments as to why these things existed. So I went into it with skepticism, but with an open mind. So I ask you to please return the favor on my own video about the show. If you don't really know anything about the show, let me just give you a brief synopsis of what it's about, and even then, the brief synopsis can't even begin to cover the chaos that happens in this show. Straight from the Wikipedia page, what it says the plot of the show is. Patti Bladell is a teenager who was constantly bullied in school for being overweight. After being on a liquid diet for 3 months over summer vacation because of a freak accident, she is now thin and seeks revenge on her bullies. A disgraced civil lawyer and obsessed beauty pageant coach, Bob Armstrong, notices Patti's potential and sets out to turn her into a pageant queen. That doesn't even begin to cover 70% of the show. But yes, that is the very, very baseline plot. I just want you to know I'm taking this seriously. I have written so many notes on this show and about my thoughts on it and about other people's thoughts on it. 5 pages of notes on this show, and even then I have thoughts that aren't written down that I will get to. I'm not taking this lightly. I'm not discrediting things and just ignoring them and giving you some kind of wishy-washy explanation. Like, I've thought this through, and here's my thoughts. Here's the thoughts that I thought through that thoughts. So let's just get right into it. Fat shaming is the #1 complaint about Insatiable. Ironically, it's the #1 thing Insatiable fights against. Patti in the beginning is overweight. She's an overweight teenager and she's bullied for it. This is a very real thing that happens. This isn't fat shaming. This is a show depicting a very real problem. People bully you for honestly anything they can find, but if you're overweight, that's something that you might be bullied for. I'm gonna do my best to keep some things spoiler free, so there will be a lot of surprises in the show if you still haven't seen it after watching this video, but there will be some things I give away, just a heads up. An accident occurs, it breaks her jaw, she has to have her jaw wired shut, so she's on a liquid diet for like 3 months over summer vacation. At the end of it, she's lost a ton of weight and is skinny now. And the show progresses from there. The show is kind of based on like, now that she's skinny, she's seeking revenge on people who bullied her in the least healthy way possible. Not that there is really a healthy way to seek revenge on someone. And here's the thing. The show doesn't depict her life getting suddenly better now that she's skinny. It shows her life getting worse now that she's skinny. There's literally a quote in the show where a character says, "Skinny isn't magic." And that is not just some brush aside quote, that is the basis of the show, is that just because she's skinny doesn't mean all of her problems go away. All of her emotional baggage that she had before, all of her issues that led her to depending on food for emotional support did not go away just because she lost the weight. The hurt from being bullied did not go away because she lost the weight. her anger issues only got worse after she lost the weight. In no way is it saying like, oh, get skinny, your life gets better and you get revenge on people. No, it's if you get skinny and you try to seek revenge on people, it's only going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt them. It also just completely ruins her life, but not necessarily because she's skinny, but because of the choices that she makes. And then people also say there's a fat shaming element to it because they put Debbie Ryan, who is a thin actress, in a fat suit. Here's the thing. They needed a thin actress to play skinny Patty. What were they gonna do? Hire another actress who was plus size to play Patty in this role, and then 3 months later suddenly she's a completely different person? That's unrealistic. That's also a thing where if you lose weight, you would look like a completely different human being. That's not the case. So they needed Debbie's acting abilities, whatever, her face, for the rest of the series, so they had to put her in a fat suit in the beginning to show the beginning of Patty and show how she got to where she is. And at no point is her being in a fat suit used as like a comedic thing. At no point of her being fat is it funny. Even the actors and the producers and the writers of the show and the directors of the show said, we put her in this suit, but if at any point someone was laughing, we immediately stopped and we were like, okay, we need to change the course of this because this should not be a comedic thing. People mocked her in the show, but you as the viewer are never felt like there's a joke that you are supposed to laugh at because she's in a fat suit or because she's fat. You see what I'm saying? It's not fat shaming. And again, repeats the phrase, skinny isn't magic. Your life doesn't suddenly get better because you're skinny. If anything, it can get worse depending on how you, an individual, act. It's your choices that can determine if your life gets better or worse, not your body. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'll see you in the next one. No, I'm kidding. Ooh, I got a lot more to say and I hope my memory card has room for it. The next one is homophobia. They say the show is homophobic. Where? I've watched the show through twice now, and it's a long show, so for me to do that says a lot. And I have a pretty good memory when it comes to things that I've watched. I can watch a movie one time and then be in a separate room and just hear like a few notes of the movie score and know exactly what movie it is, what scene it's in. There's even been times where it's movies I've not seen, but maybe I remember an advertisement, I heard about it years ago, and I can just be walking by and be like, oh, is it that movie? And they're like, oh yeah, have you seen it? No. It's the most useless skill in the world, and it's my only skill. So here we are. I've seen the show through twice. Yes, I'm straight, so maybe I shouldn't talk about it, but I'm here to defend the show, and this is something that people use against the show. It shows a very raw, honest picture of people who struggle with their sexuality. It shows Nani, who is Patty's best friend. It shows her not understanding why she feels so possessive and very jealous of Patty, especially as Patty, you know, once she's skinny, she starts kind of branching out, trying to make new friends, but a lot of it's to get revenge on them, but branching out, she starts to get a boyfriend, and Nani gets very, very jealous of that. And there is, in the very beginning, they use it sort of as a comedic thing that she's clearly in love with her best friend, but she doesn't recognize it, and they do play that off as like a comedic thing. But that's the thing about this show. Everything about it is over the top. It's a melodrama. I mean, it's meant to be like a pageant. Everything is just too much. Everything is overacted, over-exaggerated, and that's the fun of it, is just to get lost in this crazy world of pageants and Southern charm and high-class society where people are trying way too hard to be a certain way, a certain image, whatever. But at any rate, they're not poking fun at, ooh, she's gay, let's make fun of her because she's gay. It's funny to the viewer to be like, oh, bless her, she doesn't even know that she's in love with her best friend. That's why it's funny. It's not like,
she's gay.
She doesn't even know she's in love with her best friend. It's so obvious. And then it shows her having a real heartbreak of seeing Patty fall in love with a boy when she's been in love with Patty, and she's been supportive of Patty, and this boy used to make fun of Patty for being overweight. And then Nani is dealing with this, and she has a very real conversation with another girl who is a lesbian, who's like, Nani asks this girl, like, how did you figure it out? And she's like, I guess I've always known. It took this situation for it to kind of hit me, and Nani has to take that into consideration, and then Nani's exploring this part of herself, and it's a very real, very unfunny, very as healthy as it can be when she's not really getting support from her best friend. Her dad accepts it almost right away, and she was very scared to tell him, but he was just like, oh, I've kind of always known. So I think that's a good thing. That's a very positive thing to have in the show. And when Nani confessed this to Patty, Patty wasn't grossed out like, ooh, we've slept in the same bed. What? You're gay and you're in love with me? She was like, oh, I had no idea what can I do? And then they end up having an argument, which again is a very realistic argument and a very gut-wrenching, and I even cried when I watched it because Patty is very selfish and Nani needed her best friend in that moment, but Patty kind of kept turning this situation into something about Patty, not about Nani. Again, it's a very real dynamic between two best friends, this heartbreak of I was in love with you or am in love with you, and I know you'll never return it, and I just feel like I need some distance from our friendship, and Patty making everything about herself. Long story. It's good. It's good. And then we've got Bob Armstrong, who is Patty's coach, so to speak, and also like life mentor because she has no father figure and her mother's kind of absent from her life for the most part. Bob has been married to his wife for I don't know how many years, a lot of years. He's in love with his wife. He's attracted to his wife. He is what people would call flamboyant, very feminine, but he's very straight in his own mind because he is attracted to his wife. He loves his wife. It's not until something happens and he gets kissed by a man and then ends up sleeping with the man where he's like, and it makes him question everything about himself because for 40 some odd years, I don't know how old he is, I'm assuming he's in his mid-40s, he's assumed he was straight. He's been in love with his wife, he's had sex with his wife, and he's not hated it. And so he's like, well, maybe I'm bisexual? And then there's the joke, and this is the joke that people dredge up to say, oh, it's biphobic.
That's not true!
Passion's passion, Bob.
I'm not gay!
Just stay open, Bob.
I love women.
Tell yourself you're bisexual. We all go through that phase.
Bisexuals are like demons or aliens. They don't exist.
It's not meant to be taken seriously. You're not supposed to take that and be like,
oh, this show hates me. This show says I'm not real.
No, because clearly it's satire of him thinking that, because he later comes to terms with, oh, maybe bisexuals are real.
If Father Schwartz had said demons were real, maybe bisexuals were too. Maybe there was a part of myself I had refused to accept.
This isn't just a statement the show is making saying bi people aren't real, they're like aliens. It's exactly the same joke that I've seen bisexual people make. I've seen it on Twitter, Instagram memes, on Tumblr, where people who are bi make jokes being like, I don't exist, so I can walk in and out of Target, no one will see me because I'm invisible. So this is the exact same scenario of a bi man making a joke about how bisexuals aren't real. It's the exact same joke you've all been making, but it's in a show. And for some reason now it's bad that it's in a show when it's, again, if anything, they just copied it from Tumblr and used it in their own dialogue and then debunked it by saying, nope, they are real. Here's a man who is that. And then you've also got another man named Bob. His name is Bob Barnard, who is married to a woman and has a daughter with her, and he's gay, and he's kind of always known that he's gay, and he confesses to Bob Armstrong. I'm just gonna start calling them Armstrong and Barnard. Armstrong questions Barnard saying like, well, I thought, you were attracted to women's bodies, and Barnard explains, well, in a way, yeah, but emotionally I'm gay. I connect with men. I don't connect with women that way. So I can like tolerate having sex with them, but like emotionally I'm gay. So there's even that dynamic. Someone can be sort of physically attracted to a certain sex or whatever, but like they need something else emotionally. They address that in the show. So like, what else do you want? They cover like all the bases on that. What do you want from them? They do it the best they can and they still get trashed for it. I'm still on page 1. So. And then there's arguments that the show is transphobic. Where's that accusation coming from? Oh, left field? Good to know. The show shows, like, solidarity between Patty and, I forget the woman's name.
I do that too. I get stuck in the mirror, looking at my body, wishing it were different.
You have an amazing body.
So do you.
I used to be fat.
I used to be a guy.
Really?
Well, no, I mean, I've always been a girl. I just had the body of a guy. I'm trans. If anyone understands feeling uncomfortable in their own skin, it's me. I thought once I had my surgery, I'd feel better about myself. I'm still not comfortable wearing a bathing suit. I keep thinking there's going to be a day where I feel female enough.
Yeah. I think I'll feel thin enough when I lose another 10 pounds. I just keep wishing I looked perfect.
Sometimes I Wonder if I'm gonna spend the rest of my life waiting for it to start.
Me too. Maybe we don't have to. I feel so...
Free?
No, I was gonna say totally self-conscious.
Oh, thank God, me too.
Okay.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
And then you look at the dog wash itself. Brick, who is a character that will come up later, I think I've said his name right in here earlier, I don't remember, recruits people that he knows from this LGBTQ community kind of thing that he works with to come and help with the dog wash. So the whole dog wash scene is like people of all different ethnicities, all different sexualities, all different genders, all working together for this charity event, and it's like supposed to be body positive, and it is, and it's like a fun thing. It's like a cathartic thing for Patty, and she bonds with people, kind of helps her feel a little more comfortable in her skin being around all this positivity, and at no point is anyone ever portrayed in a negative light because of their gender. So, ableism. Again, where did this argument come from? Way out of left field? Okay, just trying to keep track of where these are flying from so I can make sure I catch them before they hit me in the face, because they make no sense. Perhaps this is because I don't remember there being an actual disabled person in the show, as far as like physically disabled, but that doesn't necessarily mean the show is ableist. It just means that they didn't have an actor that fit a role they needed who was maybe disabled. I don't know their choices behind it. I think this argument might come from the fact that there is a character, her name is Dixie Sinclair, and it's established from the beginning Dixie Sinclair is a villain. She does a lot of bad things, a lot of manipulative things. Her character was adopted, I think, from China. She and her mom used that to manipulate people and to make them feel bad for them and to pull the sympathy card, even though she doesn't remember being in the orphanage. She was an infant. At any rate, you can't trust her because she will lie and manipulate to get anything she wants, and it doesn't matter who she destroys or what she has to do. So, there is an accident. It's so funny. If you've seen the show, it's so funny how I have to describe this to try to not spoil things, but it makes it that much funnier for those who have seen it. She falls from a certain height. At first, people are like, oh my gosh, is she dead? She's not dead. She just sort of disappears for a while, but like people are aware she's alive. Patty gets blamed for it, but it's not Patty's fault. It plays into this whole Patty's character being evil, whatever kind of thing. Dixie Sinclair suddenly comes back and she's in a wheelchair and is saying that she'll never walk again. It's very obvious that she's playing this as like a martyr thing, and she's trying to be like, I forgive Patty for what she did to me. I understand that, you know, she has some issues and I don't blame her, and I just hope that we can avoid someone else ending up in my situation. And she uses this also to like gain sympathy with pageant boards and with just everyone around her, because everyone hated Dixie Sinclair, but once she comes back in a wheelchair, everyone's her best friend because they feel bad for her, and she knows it and she uses it to her advantage like a freaking sociopath. So Patty was bullied, right, for like her entire life, and then all of a sudden, one wrong move and she is supposed to come out on stage and apologize in front of the whole school body to Dixie for what she did that led to Dixie's injury. Patty never got an apology for people bullying her, so she feels resentment, she feels anger, and she's looking at Dixie and she suddenly realizes, wait a second, she's not actually paralyzed, she's faking this. And so she comes out on stage, she kind of rants into the microphone about how no one ever apologized to her, and then she pushes Dixie out of her wheelchair to prove that Dixie can stand, and Dixie falls to the ground as if she's paralyzed, and it makes everything a whole heck of a lot worse. But then later in the show, it's revealed that Dixie was in fact faking it the whole time. Patty was right. She was faking it the whole time to get sympathy. Again, this show isn't like mocking people for not being able to walk, and it's not saying that because someone's in a wheelchair means that they're faking. What they were saying is, this character is a bad character, she's manipulative, and she's faking this very serious injury and deserves to have repercussions for that. It was more about the psychological aspect of it than it was any physical aspect. Flip my notes over. So, people say the show is racist. Again, people might get mad at me for addressing this because I'm white, so what do I have to say about racism? Listen, I told you I was gonna address every argument I've heard, and this is one of the arguments. I'm gonna do my best. Just, people say the show is racist. And, The cast of the show is a very wide variety of races. One of the leads is a character named Magnolia Barnard, pageant girl, everything. She is mixed. Her father is white and her mother is black. Both of her parents are in the show. You have Dixie Sinclair, who is some form of Asian descent, but I believe in the show they say that she was adopted from China. And then you have Donald Choi, who he like works in a convenience store, and he just kind of happens to fall into this chaos that Patty creates. Ends up being kind of a friend of theirs and helps her and Nani out in some situations, and then even like sort of has a romantic thing with Nani, but then that kind of gets cut short when Nani's like, oh wait, I'm gay. I like him, bless him. He was like creepy in the beginning, but then he ends up being a pretty sweet guy. I like him. And then you have Dee Marshall, I think is her last name. She is Nani's first girlfriend. She's like kind of the only voice of reason in the whole show. She's basically the only sane person in the whole show, now that I think about it. The only sane person. She kind of calls them all on their crap, and I love her for it. And then of course there's Roxy. I don't know her last name, but Roxy is another pageant girl. The actress who plays her, though it's never really addressed in the show, is mixed Latina. Like I said, with the dog wash, there's a lot of different races portrayed there, but you also have to remember that this is based in like southern Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia. I'm talking like southern Georgia, and honestly, it's majority white people down there. While they do I think a decent job of including people of color in their story, and also, by the way, the villains of the show are white. Dixie Sinclair like causes trouble. The people of color aren't really villains. They make some bad choices, they do some mean things, but who doesn't? What human being doesn't? Especially in the position that they find themselves put in, which doesn't make any sense unless you see the show. But they get put in some pretty compromising positions where you kind of they make some bad choices because most of them are teenagers. But they still do a pretty good job at having a diverse cast in a place where there isn't really diversity. Like southern Georgia, it's a lot of farmland, redneck. Yeah. I will say one thing that no one has talked about, and I think it's because it's not convenient to talk about. No one's talked about how they kind of portray religion in a pretty toxic way. This is something that kind of hit me a different way because I feel like Christians already get such a bad rap in media. They always show churches in a negative light in TV shows, or they always show the people involved as fake or as manipulative or whatever. In this show, they start doing that, and I was like, well, okay, maybe they'll reconcile it later on, just like everything else, and they really didn't. Pastor's kind of a bad dude, and the church never really gets like a good light. It's always a negative thing. And the pastor only makes it worse, and his son only makes it worse. And then this exorcism that happens later on. So they show religion as a very toxic thing. Specifically, Christianity is a very toxic thing. And I recognize that there is a lot of toxicity within the church. That is very real. So they are addressing a real thing, but it's already been addressed. People talk all the time about how bad the church is. So maybe address those things, and then maybe, I don't know, show a way to reconcile them the way you did with everything else you talked about. But instead, I feel like they kind of threw the church under the bus and left it there, never really gave it a redemptive narrative. But here's the thing, I didn't like that, but I didn't write the whole show off because of it. I might have been like, man, why you gotta play me like that? I got over it because I recognized that everything about the show is meant to be overdone. Everything about the show is meant to be ridiculous and crazy and just off the wall. Yeah, it stepped on my toes a little bit, but I got over it because overall, I thought the show was really good. I'm not gonna love every single thing about a show. I love The Office. I love it. I think everyone loves The Office. There are things in The Office that I'm like, I don't know about that. But I love it anyway, and I will always love it. It doesn't matter that there might be a few flaws here or there. It's, so what? Nothing is perfect. No TV show, no movie, no director, no writer, no producer, no actor, no human being is perfect. No human being is perfect. So anything you watch, anything you consume, anything you run into, just walk outside. Anything you see with your beady little eyes is imperfect in some way. There's some flaw somewhere. And if you want to look at something and find the one flaw and decide, you know what, that has a flaw, I hate it, then you're going to hate everything you see. And what a way to live. I wouldn't want to live like that, hating everything because I find it imperfect. That's miserable because you're not going to find anything perfect. You're not going to find a single thing on this planet, on this physical planet, perfect. I believe there is something perfect out there. That's for you to figure out. But as far as this planet, nothing, and I mean nothing, including The Office, is perfect. So some final closing thoughts. What I really like about the show also is that it has a very strong female presence. A woman created it, a woman by the name of Lauren Geis. I would hate if I butchered her name, but I think it's Lauren Geis. There's a ton of female writers, there's female directors. The cast is majority female, and they all play different roles. They play villains, they play good people, all across the spectrum. Women are portrayed in all different kinds of ways in the show. And the topics addressed in a show that is majority female really have almost nothing to do with boys. There are like romantic things that happen. That's because they're in high school and like hormones and whatever. But for the majority of the show, the main topics discussed are body image, bullying, family issues, sexuality, eating disorders, body morphic disorder, drug abuse, abusive relationships, manipulation, lying. I ran out of fingers. I ran out of things to count on. So, the show discusses difficult topics without romanticizing them. That's why watching the show can get a little uncomfortable, and they don't make it romantic. I'm looking at you, 13 Reasons Why. There's like a scene where Patty, it's her birthday and things got bad, and she finds herself home alone. Her mom's ditched her, and she has a sheet cake in front of her, and she takes one bite and then just slowly starts binging on this cake. And it's there's no music playing during the shot. All you hear is just her eating and silent tears sort of streaming down her face. As someone who has dealt with binge eating in the past, I found it very real and very hard to watch. Didn't find it triggering though. But that's just me, so if you're sensitive to that, be wary of her birthday episode. It's the final scene, so maybe just skip past that. It's only about 30 seconds. I liked seeing that as a very real thing. It wasn't this person who just shoves a bunch of food in their mouth and it's like, oh, I just like food. This thing that's out of her control, and she's just stuffing her face because these emotions she can't deal with, and it's like a mindless sort of action, and you eat till you feel uncomfortable and you keep going, you don't even know why. And I liked that they portrayed it that way. At the same time, when they're addressing these difficult topics, they also know that there is a line to cross that becomes triggering. And I think they can sometimes tiptoe that line, but I personally don't think they ever cross the line. They discuss difficult things like abuse and drug addiction without actually showing things. So there's struggles with sexuality, but there's no sexually explicit images in the show. People struggle with drug abuse, but there's no depiction of them actually like doing the drugs. People dealing with a lot of body image issues, but there's no like imagery of self-harm. I'm looking at you, 13 Reasons Why. It talks about these topics without going overboard with showing you things that you don't really need to see. You know what it is, you know what it's like. You don't need to cross that line as far as like graphic content goes. This was a tough video. I feel like I like to make lighthearted content. I like to make jokes. I just keep seeing this show get trashed on social media, and I'm honestly sick of it because no, it's not a perfect show, but it's not worth all of the hate that it's getting. It doesn't necessarily need to be your favorite show in the world. It's not my favorite show in the world, but I enjoyed watching it, and that's about it. I enjoyed watching it. I thought it made some good points. I thought I learned a few little nuggets of life lessons I might be able to carry on with me. Can't wait for season 2. I think it's gonna be really wild how they go from the way season 1 ended and then how they're gonna bridge that to season 2, because I don't know how they got out of that predicament. I have wrong opinions about things, I'm sure. Watch it for yourself with an open mind and just roll with it, you know? Just something weird happens, just let it happen. It can be really fun to watch. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to chomp down on that subscribe button. If you've made it this far, leave a comment saying Donald Choi was the real star of Insatiable. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
My foot in my mouth